Hello and welcome to another episode of the devlog of Runes of Aereal. So recently I've been focusing a lot on fire, and one thing I did there is added another card. And this card is called the Incineration Card. I've got some settings here to show you how that works. So here we go. We fight and we get some incineration cards on our hand. We play it and you see what it does. It deals 3 damage, fire damage to all creatures. So you can see that they are on fire right now, and there's a fire burning here as well. So in order to do that, I've changed the state icon here to have an extra frame for the fire icon, and I've also changed the enemies here to have an extra fire instance variable to indicate that it's got so much fire left right now. So in the command functions, we see in the use card that if the cast fire of the cards, which is also here cast fire, which is also a new instance variable, telling that this card is going to cast some fire. And then we check if the card's target enemy instance variable here is 0 or not. Because if it is 1, then we have to target a specific enemy. Then we still do this function, these things here. But if it is 0, that means that all of the enemies need to be targeted. And then we just pick all of the enemies with a health greater than 0. And for each of those enemies, we cast a new command called Cast Fire. And Cast Fire is a new command that will effectively go and cast that fire effect. So first we need to check if the current target is 0 or not, because if it's 0 it means we need to pick a random enemy. But in this case, for this incineration card, that's not the case. It just does it 3 times. It casts that fire 3 times to 3 different enemies. We play that sound here. We play an effect based on the card's effect. We show an exclamation. We create that effect fire here on the X and Y axis here of that enemy, basically. And then what we do is we adjust that effect's Y position based on the enemy we're attaching it to, because the bird and the small spider are far more small and they are also up in the air somewhere, not the ground. So we need to compensate for that position here, the Y position, and we also set the scale to have a smaller fire essentially. So, and then we pick an artifact. We can use this one here. Then we see if there is an artifact with the artifact type extra fire, which is also something I've added. I'll come back to that in a minute. And then I set the fire instance variable of that enemy effectively, and I create a new statistic I've added here, because there's the statistic called stat cast fire here. So furthermore, what we're going to do here in enemies, we've also got the set state here, setting the state on fire here if we pass along the par state called state fire. And furthermore, we've also got the refresh update enemy HUD. This is what I was looking for, where we have, if it's on fire, then we set the state fire here. So in order to have an effect that we show the user that the fire has been done at the end of the turn. So I didn't show you that actually. Let me go back to the preset here and get back to the fire. I can start the game again.
Fight.
So now what we'll do is we'll set the enemy on fire. And if we end the turn right now, they will subtract 3 health from each of them, because the fire is set to 3, and after that the fire will decrease by 1.
Enemy turn.
And you saw that
Fire. Your turn.
we immediately saw 2 extra things here. We saw the bats flying. That's also something I've added. I'll come back to that in a minute. And the enemy also has the ability now to set the hero on fire. So that's what it's doing now. And the hero is also 1 fire effect right now. So I'll come back to that in a minute. But what you saw also was when the fire damage was done, there was also a -3 going up here. Text of -3 going up. That's actually a fire text. That's actually a copy, I believe it's here on stuff. Here it is. That's a copy of this venom text. There's also a fire text, because actually the enemy can be both on fire and have venom, and then these two immediately appear next to each other. So if we go and find all reference to that, we can see here. And we also see that if we create this fire object, then we see if we do it for fire is greater than 0, then we add -50, else we add 0. So that is done here as well, where we also set the X position here. So that means that we can display both of them at the same time, nicely next to each other, so the user sees that basically when the enemy has venom and fire, that they are both subtracted from that enemy health. So there is also this background noise. It's called fire burning. Let me just search that. Fire burning. Which is called play sound, which is in this fire burning timer, and we start that fire burning timer whenever we cast a fire by using a scroll or by using a card. We start this fire burning timer. So basically whenever there's fire, you will heal the fire burning. So that's something extra we added. So just now when I was running the game, you will also saw that there were bats flying around. So these bats, just like the ambient sound, is like something that happens once in a while based on a random timer. So if we go to stuff here, we can also see that there are bats. There's a bat object and there's a bat particles. Let me preview that particle, something like that. It's a one-shot particle where I just tweak the settings to have an effect kind of where bats are flying away. And it is based on a function called spawn bats. And spawn bat is a function. What it does really simply is we set an X and Y position, and it's based on the card swiper thing here. The card swiper left box plus a random of the width of the card swiper. That means somewhere in the middle of the screen basically, and the top plus random 50 somewhere near the top of the screen. So it's a bit randomized where those bats will appear. And there's also this bat sound I've imported. And start bat cycle just starts a bat cycle with bat timer here at a 5 plus random 60. So it can take maximum 65 seconds for the bats to appear, but it can also be earlier. And the bat timer here, it calls the spawn bats, and it restarts the bat timer again, maximum 65 seconds apart, basically. That's the spawn bats function. So I've added another card. Let's show you that card, and it's called the Scrutiny Card. And the Scrutiny Card, let's start that. And the Scrutiny Card is it's also a Venom card that applies a Venom to a certain enemy. And you can see it deals 2 Venom to all creatures here. So that was previously not implemented. And what was not implemented is in the use the use card, we check if the enemy has to cast venom, and if that variable here, target enemy equals 0, then we need to cast all. We cast the venom to all of the enemies. That was something that wasn't implemented yet, and I've used the opportunity to implement this Scrutiny Card to just essentially cast venom to all enemies depending on this target enemy equals 0 instance variable of the card's family. So I've gone a little bit further on using those fire effects, and I've also added another scroll called Scroll Ignite, and essentially it just does fire damage to some enemy. So I'll demonstrate to you how it looks like.
Fight.
And we've got this Ignite scroll, we can take it and cast damage. So the Ignite scroll here, we can you can see here, there's also a function called Cast Scroll Fire, and it does mostly the same thing as the Cast Card Fire, but instead for cards it does it with a scroll that can cast fire, basically. So here you also see that there is an extra check here if there is an artifact on the HUD with the artifact type extra fire. And in fact that's also an addition here to this version. Let's go to artifacts, and you can see here I've added the andari crystals, and this is called extra fire. When casting fire, add 1 extra fire damage, basically. So let's see what that looks like. 1 extra fire damage, andari.
Fight.
So here we've equipped these andari crystals, and we've got the Incineration Card. So remark that it does 3 fire damage, and if we drop it here, you see it does 4 fire damage. So that's the result of those andari crystals here. This is the extra fire artifact type. So in addition, I've added some more things, and that is the ability to set the hero on fire as well. So set the main character on fire. Let me show you what that looks like. I've also added hero fire here. So this works with the preferred next action. You can see here it's going to cast the spell. I'm just going to end my turn and you'll see what happens.
Enemy turn. Fire. Your turn.
So you can see that the hero is now on fire, and the state icon says, okay, the enemy has dealt 2 fire. Whenever I end my turn now, it's going to deduct that number of fire. It's going to deduct that number of fire again. So basically, I've set the preferred next action to fire, so it always casts fire. So it's never ending right now, but you don't have to do that, of course. In order to implement that, again, I have changed the refresh hero states here. If the hero state, player state fire, if the player state fire is larger than 0, then we will set the fire hero state, of course. And I've also added the best spell cast fire option here to the AI possibilities. And that means that in the function called determine a strategy here, determine strategy, we also have the ability to check if the preferred next action equals fire. Then we set this action to fire, of course. And in enemy attack, we will check if the next action equals fire, and it should be here somewhere, here, cast fiber. Then we add the next value, of course, to the player state fire. That's actually what happens. So basically, mostly the same as Feeble, but now with fire, actually. And in order to do that, I also have changed the show message here. So show message function, if we pass along the message fire, what we do is we play that sound and we shake the screen a little bit. So that works perfectly fine. And in the function next turn, what we do in the function next turn, whenever we end our turn, of course, what we need to do, and I'm just looking for next turn. Next turn, here we are. Call next turn. What we do is, no, it's end turn. It's not end, next turn. It's end turn probably. I have made a mistake in this explanation. It's probably end turn. Here we are. If the player state is larger than 0, player state fire, then we subtract the health. We play the sound, we play an effect, we shake, subtract 1 from the state fire, and we refresh the hero states once again. So here in this subtract health, we also have this check, basically if the hero dies after that, yes or no, and in the refresh hero states, you'll see that we check if the state fire is larger than 0, then we set the hero fire visible, hero fire which is standard always visible on the screen. You can see it here. This is the hero fire, and it's actually attached with a hierarchy to the hero, so if the hero moves from left to right, then the fire also goes with him. So that's what I did. So what I did also here is I adjusted the sandbox to include also an option that we are on fire from the start, to test that actually. So we're also going to test that, because the last thing I want to show you is what I've added. I'm going to change this to 5, for example. Select an enemy, select one strong, let's select the starter deck, and I have also added a scroll called Holy Water. So we're going to start the game with 1 strong enemy with just the starter deck, because I don't care about the cards right now, with some character on fire for 5 and a scroll in the inventory. And we're starting that game now.
Fight.
So you can see I'm on fire, we've dealt 5 fire, but we've also get that scroll here, and if you're on fire, extinguish it. It's use the scroll, and then we are no longer on fire. So basically that's it. A lot of things involving fire, some nice bats effects, 2 new cards, so that's quite something in this update. I hope you liked it. Please like and subscribe, and if you want the full project, please support me on my Patreon page. See you next time.